Black family vanished on holiday trip in 1987 to 18 years later. This is found deep in the woods. I was 8 years old when the Thompsons vanished, but I remember it like it happened yesterday. My mom kept the old TV on during dinner that week, which she never did. Every channel showed the same thing, the family of 5 that disappeared off Highway 55 without a trace. It was summer, July of 1987. They were just passing through our town in North Carolina on their way to a lakeside resort in Georgia. That's what the reports said. They stopped for gas just outside of town, bought snacks, and then, nothing. Gone. No wreckage, no calls, no sightings, nothing but the last confirmed photo. A blurry security cam still of Mr. Thompson at the register holding a soda. His wife, Vanessa, waited near the door with their 3 kids, Lila, age 12, Marcus, age 10, and baby Jerome, just barely 2. The gas station attendant said they were polite, happy, even joked about the heat wave. The clerk watched their station wagon pull out of the lot and turn east toward the highway. They never made it. I remember staring at the photo of the 3 kids in the newspaper, especially the girl, Lila, with her braids and bright pink shirt. I don't know why she stuck with me. Maybe because she looked right at the camera. The others didn't. For almost 2 decades, people talked about that case. Theories ranged from accident to abduction to some kind of witness protection level disappearance. But no evidence ever turned up. Not even a hubcap. Not until 2005. That's when I got the call. I was 26 by then. Working with a state-run conservation group doing forestry surveys. Boring work, most days. Trees, soil reports, boundary markers, that sort of thing. But sometimes we stumbled across weird stuff. Old shelters, animal traps. Once, we found a collapsed moonshine shed from the 30s. So we weren't exactly strangers to the woods keeping secrets. It was early March, cold, gray, leafless. We were up near a stretch of undeveloped forest past Copper Ridge, land that hadn't been touched in over 40 years. Technically public land, but unzoned and unmaintained. I was with 2 others that day, Carla and Ramon. We were marking tree lines for a potential rewilding project. It was supposed to be a short hike in, set some flags, take photos, log coordinates, head back. We didn't expect to find the car. It was just there, tucked between a horseshoe of birch trees, maybe 30 yards off an old game trail. Like it had been placed there. A 1986 Ford Country Squire wagon. The kind with fake wood paneling on the sides. Moss had grown around the tires. The windshield was caked in grime and mold. But the body was mostly intact. No collision damage. No broken windows. It hadn't been in a crash. Carla spotted the license plate first. She radioed it in while Ramon and I approached. I don't know how to describe the feeling I had when I touched the driver's side door handle. Like static. Like air pressure shifting. It was unlocked. Inside, the air was stale. Damp. But not the kind of decay you'd expect after 18 years. The upholstery was musty but not shredded. There were old toys in the backseat. A sippy cup. A melted cassette tape. A single pink shoe. Small, canvas, faded. The glove compartment had maps. Crumpled receipts. Nothing out of the ordinary, until I opened the center console. Inside was a Polaroid. It showed the entire Thompson family. Standing in front of the car. Not smiling, just staring. But behind them, in the trees, was something blurry. Something tall. I showed it to Carla. She went pale. Ramon said it was probably a trick of the light, or damaged film. The dispatch call came back 15 minutes later. The plates matched. The missing car of the Thompsons. Disappeared July 1987. We didn't say anything for a moment. Just stood there, the 3 of us, in that dead forest, next to that car that shouldn't exist anymore. That was just the beginning. The local police took over the site. News vans came swarming within a day. People asked how it had never been found before. After all the searches, the helicopters, the dogs. But here's the thing, the area had been searched. I found archived maps from the original investigation. One of the cadaver dog routes passed within 100 feet of that clearing. I called the guy who led that team, a retired cop named Orlin. He remembered the case clearly. Swore on his life that the car wasn't there. He'd walked that path himself. Even stranger, when forensics came in, they found no bones. No blood, no signs of trauma, nothing. The car was empty, undamaged. But the keys were still in the ignition. And the engine? It wasn't cold, not warm like it had just been running, but not cold either. Techs said it was ambient, like it had somehow matched the temperature of the air inside. As if it had always been there. And in the ashtray, buried under old change, was a burnt match. Fresh. 18 years. And someone had lit a match recently. That's when I started digging. Into the old records. Into everything that didn't make the news. I started calling people. The former gas station attendant. One of the original investigators. A cousin of the Thompsons who still lived in Raleigh. Most didn't want to talk. Some had stories they'd never shared with the press. One woman, a retired dispatcher, told me she'd received a call the night the Thompsons disappeared. A garbled voice saying only one thing: they turned too soon. She logged it. Investigators dismissed it. But here's the kicker: there is a small service road a few miles from the gas station they stopped at. Unmarked. It shows up on old topographical maps, but it was overgrown and unused by 87. It's not on any GPS. Barely a road. More like a path made from compacted gravel and tire ruts. And it heads straight toward the forest where the car was found. I went out there myself. Alone. What I found, well, I'll get to that. But I'll tell you this much first. There were more Polaroids, and they weren't all of the Thompsons. I drove that service road the following morning. It was barely there. A depression in the earth more than a road. Roots crisscrossed it like veins. The trees leaned in heavy, as if trying to erase it. My tires caught in the ruts, and the undercarriage scraped more than once. GPS gave up about a mile in. I parked and walked the rest of the way. I had the Polaroid in my pocket. The one with the family and the tall shape behind them. I'd looked at it 100 times already. I still couldn't make out what it was. The shape had no real features. No face. No limbs. Just vertical presence. I told myself it was a trick of shadow. Pareidolia. My mind making patterns out of leaves and blur. But my gut didn't agree. The path curved downward, subtly at first, then more steeply, like I was descending into something that hadn't wanted to be found. The air changed, thicker, cooler, still. Then I saw the clearing. And in the center, a structure. Not a building, more like a shed, narrow, vertical, covered in green rot. No windows, just a single wooden door, warped from years of weather. Ivy wrapped around it like it was holding it shut. I circled it. There were no markings, no hinges, no lock, no visible roof. But there were scratches near the bottom of the doorframe. Not animal scratches. Fingernail scratches. Long, desperate gouges. At least 24 of them. Some deep enough to splinter the wood. I stepped closer. Placed my palm against the door. It was warm. I stepped back and did what anyone would do in a moment like that. I left. I didn't tell Carla, or Ramon, or the team. I didn't tell the police. But I went back, 3 days later, this time with gloves, bolt cutters, and a pry bar. The door resisted, as if it wasn't just stuck, as if it didn't want to open. But eventually, it gave. Inside, it was dark. Narrow, just wide enough for one person to step in. The walls were covered in drawings. Hundreds of them. Charcoal, pencil, some etched with what looked like stone or nails. All of them showed the same thing. The Thompson family, sometimes smiling, sometimes screaming, sometimes in poses I recognized from the original news clippings. Exact clothing, exact angles, others I didn't recognize. The baby, Jerome, drawn alone, over and over. Sitting in the dirt, reaching towards something just off frame. The girl, Lila, drawn with black circles for eyes. The same pink shirt, every time. One drawing showed the station wagon in the trees, but with something standing beside it. A tall figure, faceless, bent at the neck as if looking inside. I took photos of everything. In the back of the shed, behind a rotting tarp, I found something else. A bundle of personal items. A cracked hairbrush, a child's sock, a plastic bracelet with faded letters, LILA. I got out, fast, drove straight to the ranger station. They brought in a team. Photographed everything, collected evidence, but by the time they returned 2 days later, the shed was gone. I mean that literally. The entire structure had disappeared. No foundation, no debris, no indent in the soil. Just wild undergrowth, as if nothing had ever been there. The photos I took? Corrupted, all black, even the cloud backup, but the bracelet was real. They confirmed it was Lila's. Matched the photo from 1987. And then the FBI showed up. They took everything. The matchbook from the car. The maps. The cassette tape I hadn't even mentioned yet. They questioned me for 6 hours. Asked about similar cases, whatever that meant. Told me I hadn't seen what I thought I saw. And just like that, they closed the file. Publicly, the report stated that the car had been recently dumped and potentially staged. They blamed local vandals for the scene. But I know better, because a month after the shed vanished, I received a package at my apartment. No return address, postmarked from Maine. Inside was a single Polaroid. It showed the clearing, same trees, but now the car was there. Again, like it had returned, or had always been. Behind the car stood the same figure. And this time, it wasn't blurry. It had a face. And it was mine. I didn't tell anyone about the Polaroid. I just stared at it for days. There I was. Same jacket I wore on the first day we found the car. Same scuffed boots. Standing by the wagon, looking straight at the camera. And behind me, barely visible in the shadows of the birch trees, another figure. Taller, bent slightly, still faceless. I checked the timestamp scribbled on the back in smudged ink. July 15, 1987. But Polaroids don't automatically timestamp. Someone wrote that, with purpose. The package had no prints. No residue. Even the postmark looked off, too faint. Like it had been handled too many times or run through an old machine. I kept it in a drawer. The same drawer where I'd started placing other things, receipts, clippings, copies of police reports. Notes written in the margins. Locations, times, theories. It wasn't research anymore. It was ritual. I kept telling myself I could stop. But then came the second package. This one arrived taped to my door, no stamp, no envelope. Just wrapped in newspaper. Inside, a cassette tape. Blank label. Handwritten note. Track ends where it began. Same message as the one found in the car's console months ago. I didn't have the old stereo anymore. But I remembered the building. The one where they stored evidence before the FBI stepped in. Where we'd kept the player. I drove out there, half expecting the place to be empty. It wasn't. The stereo was gone. But in its place, in the center of the table, was a manila folder. Inside, a map, hand-drawn, dated, marked with a series of red X's, spaced evenly across the state, most of them near woods, rivers, or forgotten lots. Every single one, paired with a name and a year. Some I recognized, others I didn't, but 3 names were circled. Thompson, 87, Gibson, 64, Turner, 59, and next to them, in a different pen. They turned too soon. That phrase again. I checked the earliest name on the list, Turner, 1959. Found an old article in a microfiche archive at the Raleigh Library. Entire family vanished while driving to a wedding. Last seen at a gas station asking for directions. Sound familiar? The car was never found. Until it was. In 1984. In Vermont. Parked behind a church that had been abandoned since the 40s. And inside? The radio was playing. Battery dead. No power source. But witnesses said the tape deck played the same song on loop. They couldn't make out the lyrics. It wasn't in English. After that, I started seeing them. The Polaroids. In the street. In my mailbox. One slipped under my windshield wiper while I was parked at the grocery store. All different. All showing me, sometimes younger, sometimes older, always near the Thompson car. Always facing away. And in every single one, that same figure stood in the trees. Only now, it was getting closer. I stopped sleeping. Amanda, my girlfriend at the time, said I was slipping. That I needed help. She left the night I said the house had shifted. That the hallway was longer than it used to be. That I kept hearing the sound of a cassette rewinding. I didn't blame her. I don't blame anyone anymore. That's when I decided to go back to the clearing. Alone. Final time. This was a few weeks ago. Early spring. Snow melting in patches. Fog still clinging to the earth like it didn't want to lift. I hiked the same trail. No GPS. Just memory. The clearing was there. But no car. No shed. Just one thing now. A tree. Newly grown. Didn't belong there. Its bark was split open down the middle, not natural. Too symmetrical. Like someone had unzipped it. I stepped closer. Tucked inside the gap in the bark, was a cassette tape. Wrapped in a strip of pink cloth. And beneath it, pinned with a rusted nail, a photo. The Thompson family. Same pose, same clothes, but this time, they were all smiling. Except Lila. She was looking to the side. And the edge of the frame, just barely visible, showed a second car. A car that looked like mine. I left the clearing with the cassette and the photo. I didn't look back. I didn't play the tape right away either. I brought it home and placed it on the kitchen counter, stared at it like it might start humming on its own. I examined the cloth it was wrapped in, pink, sun-faded, stained at the corner. A child's fabric, the kind you'd find on a small jacket or stuffed animal. I checked the photo again. That second car, the one just barely in frame, it was the same make and model as mine. Same dent on the passenger door. Same missing hubcap. It was my car, but the photo was dated. Backdated, July 13, 1987. 2 days before the Thompsons disappeared. I looked at the date for a long time. Then I got in my car and drove. I didn't know where I was going. I just followed instinct. Old roads, back roads, roads with numbers instead of names. Around midnight, I reached an intersection I didn't recognize. No lights, no signs, just a four-way dirt crossing and an old mailbox, rusted and leaning, with no house in sight. I turned off the engine. Sat in silence. Then I heard it. A car door shutting. Behind me. I turned. No one there. The woods were black and alive with sound. Not insects, tones. A distant hum, like a slowed-down cassette playing beneath the earth. I stepped out of the car. Walked to the mailbox. Inside, a Polaroid. It showed me, standing at the intersection, looking into the mailbox. Same clothes. Same expression. Taken from above. I looked up. Nothing. No trees tall enough. No drones. Just sky. I got back in the car and drove home, heart slamming against my ribs the whole way. I didn't sleep that night. At 3:11 a.m., the hallway light flickered. Then again at 3:17. And again at 3:23. 6-minute intervals. Like a countdown. I played the tape the next morning. Same stereo as before. I found it again at a secondhand shop by the interstate. Identical to the one we used back in the forestry office. The moment the tape clicked into place, the hum returned. Low, steady, then the sound of tires on gravel. Then a voice. Male, calm, familiar, mine. I've seen it now, the voice said. It doesn't end at the car. It ends after. It always ends after. But the reel keeps spinning. Then silence. Then a click. Then the same voice again, only slower. Distorted, repeating one phrase. The door is open, but not for long. I rewound it. Played it again. Same sequence. I took the tape out. And it was warm. That night, I went to visit Orlin, the old investigator from the original Thompson case. He'd agreed to speak again, though he made it clear he didn't want to stir old ghosts. I brought him the Polaroid. The one from the mailbox. His hand shook as he held it. "Where'd you get this?" he asked. I told him. He didn't speak for a long time. Then he said something I'll never forget. The car was never supposed to be found. That forest. It's not part of any county line. Not anymore. There were others. Before the Thompsons. No one wanted to connect the dots. He showed me a box he kept in his attic. Newspapers, maps, photos. He'd saved everything. In one manila envelope. A sketch made by a local boy in 1971. Said he'd seen a shadow man near the woods. Tall, with no face, reaching into the trees. Behind it, a Polaroid. Not of a person, of a doorway, standing in the middle of a clearing. Freestanding, no frame, just an upright wooden door in the middle of the woods. Open, behind it, blackness, no clearing, no trees, no sky, just absence. Orlin said the photo was mailed to him anonymously 3 weeks after the Thompsons disappeared. He'd kept it hidden. I used to think it was a prank, he said. Now I think it was a warning. I asked him what he thought the car meant, why it had returned, why it moved, why it was found at all. He said something I've been turning over in my mind ever since. Maybe it didn't return. Maybe we just finally lined up with it again. Like a loop, like a reel rewinding. I left before sunset. I drove the long way home. Avoided the forest roads. I haven't been back to the clearing since. But last night, I heard something in my living room. Not footsteps. Doors. Opening. Closing. Opening. At 3:17 a.m., my hallway light blinked once. Then my phone lit up. A message from a number with no name. Just one image. Another Polaroid. This time, it showed my house. My living room. Empty. Except for a girl standing in the corner. Wearing a pink shirt. Looking right at the camera. That message on the cabin. You arrived too late in 87. Don't be late again. It hasn't left my head. Not once. I started waking up at exactly 3:17 a.m., even without an alarm. No sounds. No lights. Just a presence. Not inside the house. Outside. Standing in the yard. Same silhouette. Every night. Always watching the same direction. Toward the tree line behind my house. Not looking at me, but waiting. Like something's supposed to arrive. Or return. Last week, I finally gave in. I went back to the lake. But this time I didn't go alone. I called Carla, the coworker who'd been with me the day we first found the Thompson car. She'd moved out of state years ago, started teaching environmental science at a community college, hadn't spoken to me in over a decade. But when I said one word, Thompsons, she went silent. Then she said, I've been seeing them too. I didn't even ask what she meant. We met the next morning, and she brought a box. Inside, maps, photos, audio reels, and a notebook, filled cover to cover. Her handwriting, dates, places, observations, nightmares. It turns out she never stopped following it either. She showed me a map with new locations. The lake wasn't the only one. There were 5 others, all matching backroads disappearances tied to families on holiday trips between 1952 and 1996. All were black families. All were traveling near unregistered service roads. All were last seen smiling in gas station photos. All left behind nothing, until something reappeared decades later. And in every one of Carla's notes, one phrase kept showing up, sometimes scrawled in the margins. Sometimes scratched into signs near the locations, sometimes whispered on distorted audio from her cassette reels. We are not lost. We are paused. That night, after she left, I listened to one of her tapes. It was a child's voice. Singing something low, rhythmic. Then a click. Then silence. Then a different voice, adult, calm, female. If you're hearing this, it means the loop broke. It means something didn't line up. Then the tape cut out. No hiss, no ending, just click. I rewound it. Same result. I tried again. On the 3rd playthrough, the voice continued. You're not supposed to stay this long. They're noticing. Then a long tone. That night, my hallway grew longer again. I measured it. From front door to bathroom used to be 17 feet. Now it was 19.5. Amanda messaged me out of nowhere at 2:03 a.m. We hadn't spoken in months. She wrote, Did you get another photo? There's one taped to my mirror. It shows me asleep, but I live alone. I told her to leave the house. To drive anywhere. To keep the lights on. To stay in places with windows and exits. She didn't reply, but the next morning, I found a new Polaroid under my windshield wiper. Amanda, sitting in her car, windows fogged, looking straight ahead, and behind her, in the rear window, that same girl in the pink shirt. Lila, older again, maybe mid-20s now, and in this photo, her eyes were covered, like she didn't want to see what was next. Or she'd already seen it. I kept the Polaroid of Amanda in a drawer. I didn't want to look at it again. But I couldn't throw it away either. I stared at that image of her, sitting still, hands on the wheel, lips slightly parted, like she was mid-sentence. And Lila, still in the back seat. But this time, something was different. Her hands were on Amanda's shoulders. I hadn't noticed it at first, the photo was too dark. But when I tilted it under the light just right, I could see it. 2 pale hands, resting gently. Not grabbing, just resting, like she was trying to guide her. Or hold her in place. 3 days passed, no new messages, no packages. I tried to go back to work, to normal things, grocery shopping, responding to old emails, pretending my life hadn't turned into a looping, analog nightmare. Then Carla called. She didn't say hello, just, they moved the car again. I met her outside town, where the woods get thick and the roads lose names. She showed me, the Thompson car was back. Different spot, same condition, same keys in the ignition, same missing sippy cup on the floor. Except now, the glove compartment was open. And inside, not a photo, not a map, but a page torn from a notebook. One of Carla's. I recognized her handwriting immediately. Only it was dated 2 weeks in the future. And it described this exact meeting. right down to what I was wearing. Then it ended with a line neither of us could explain. We are not driving through time. Time is circling us. That night, I went home and checked the hallway again. It had changed, shorter now, by 3 feet. I opened the closet. It was full of items I didn't recognize. Children's toys, a pair of boots I never bought, a scarf Amanda never wore, and on the top shelf, another cassette tape. No case, just tape, wrapped in the same pink fabric as the one from the lake. I played it, same voice as before, Lila's voice, but this time, she was older. Measured, not scared. She said, "There are 2 of me now. One waiting, one remembering. He keeps trying to fix it, but he never gets it right. He always turns off the road." The tape stopped, rewound itself. I didn't press anything. It just started spinning backward, on its own. Then a new voice played. A voice I'd never heard before. Cold, deep, mechanical but not robotic, like gravel being poured in reverse. "You have heard enough." Then silence. I unplugged the player. The reel kept spinning. I stayed up all night. No lights, no sound, just waiting. At 3:17 a.m., nothing happened. No knock, no flicker. But at 3:19, a sound. From the backyard, I looked through the window and saw lights, headlights, moving through the trees. Not fast, crawling, like someone was driving a car through brush that hadn't seen a path in years. And behind it, more lights. 4, maybe 5, all moving in a slow circle. Not random, a pattern. I took a photo with my phone. But when I looked at the image, the lights weren't there. Just forest, still, black, ordinary, until I zoomed in, just barely visible in the far right corner. The front of a station wagon. 1986 Ford Country Squire. Parked behind my shed. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the kitchen, the lights off, window cracked open, Polaroid of Amanda and Lila beside me on the table, and I watched the trees beyond the backyard. I thought I saw movement, but I didn't check. At 4:02 a.m., I heard the sound of an engine. Not on the road, not near the driveway, behind the house, through the woods. It idled for several seconds, then stopped. I got up, walked to the back door, stepped outside. The woods were dead silent. No wind, no insects, just the faint sound of something cooling, metal ticking softly, like it had just shut off. I followed it, shoes crunching over dried pine needles. About 100 feet in, I saw it again. The car, the same Thompson wagon, parked crooked between 2 trees, rear tires half submerged in mud, headlights off, but still warm to the touch. And on the passenger seat, under a cracked windshield, sat something new. A cassette recorder. Already playing. No tape inside. Just spinning. I opened the door. The instant my fingers touched the recorder, it stopped. Then clicked, and I heard the door behind me creak open. I turned. There was no door. Just forest. Just dark. But I swear, I heard someone say, "You've come far enough. He's ready." A child's voice. Not Lila's. Not Marcus. A boy. Jerome? I turned back. Now there was a cassette inside the recorder. Labeled in pencil. Exit 52. I drove the highway the next day. Exit 52 didn't exist on the current interstate map. But I found it, hidden behind construction fencing, overgrown. A road that had once led somewhere but now just sank into grass and rust. No sign, just the ghost of painted lettering on a concrete barrier. Willow Pines Rec. Area, 5 miles. That name again. Lila's shirt. Camp Willow Pines. I drove through the fencing. The road was barely there. Crumbling. Trees pressed in on both sides. Exactly 5 miles in, I saw the sign. Half buried in weeds. Tilted sideways. Willow Pines Family Campground closed since 1983. The buildings were gone. Rot collapsed. Only outlines of foundations remained. But I recognized it, from one of the early Polaroids. I stepped out, grass up to my knees. Air thick and still. In the middle of the clearing, someone had arranged 5 chairs. Old metal folding chairs, facing a single tree. On each chair, a photograph. Faded, almost lost to time. One of each Thompson family member. William, Vanessa, Marcus, Jerome, and Lila. But her photo was missing the eyes. Burned out, not scratched, burned, still crisp around the holes. The chair beside hers was empty. Not in front of the tree, but turned away. Facing me, And on the ground in front of it, another cassette. And this time, my name written on it. For you, when you finally listen. I stood in front of that empty chair for a long time. The one facing away from the tree. The one meant, maybe, for me. The cassette at my feet had my name on it. Written in a small, careful hand. Not childish, not rushed, just, final. I picked it up. There was a portable player sitting on one of the other chairs, old, clunky, with cracked foam headphones. I pressed play without thinking. The tape clicked. Word. Then my voice began to speak. But not now me. Younger. Timid. I said, if you're hearing this, then you followed it all the way. You did everything I already did. I think I left this for you. Or maybe you left it for me. Maybe we were always the same person. I don't know anymore. Static. Then breathing. Then, I saw them again. They weren't afraid. They weren't confused. They just stood there. Like they were waiting to see if I'd make the same mistake twice. Then silence. I let the tape roll until it clicked off. When I looked up, someone was sitting in the chair. The one facing the tree. A girl, Lila, now older, 20-something, just like in the Polaroid from Amanda's windshield. She didn't turn, didn't speak, just sat there. I stepped forward. My mouth went dry. Lila? I said. She nodded, barely, but she didn't look at me. She kept staring at the tree. There was something pinned to the bark with a rusted tack, a sheet of paper, yellow and fragile with age. I approached slowly. The paper was a page from a calendar. July 1987, the 15th circled in red. Under it, a single sentence written in thin black ink. This is where the road ends unless someone turns back. I turned to ask her what it meant. But the chair was empty. She was gone. No sound, no footsteps, just the trees breathing in that slow, heavy way they do before something changes. And then I heard something from behind the tree. A door, opening, wood on wood, creaking on its hinges. I stepped around the trunk. And there it was, standing freely in the middle of a patch of moss, disconnected from any structure, any logic, just a simple wooden doorframe with a closed door. Like the one from the photo Orland showed me. Except this time, it was open. Inside, blackness. Not shadow, not darkness. Black, like it swallowed light. And standing just inside the threshold was me. Not younger, not older, just me, wearing what I was wearing, holding what I was holding. But his eyes were wrong. Not blank, empty, like whatever was behind those eyes had stepped away for a while. He raised a hand slowly. Not a wave, a gesture, inviting. I didn't move. He stepped back inside the blackness. And vanished. The door remained open, but no sound came from it. Only the wind through the trees. I turned away, left the tape, the photo, the chair. I walked out of Willow Pines campground. And never went back. No historia ne consilas tam. Potomu CTO 2 nights later, at 3:17 a.m., my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. Static. Then a voice. Lila's voice. Older. More sure. She said, you didn't follow. That's good. But it's still not over. There's one more car. And it hasn't stopped driving. Then she hung up. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was afraid. But because I was waiting. For what, I didn't know. But I kept seeing that second car, the one Lila mentioned on the call. The one that was still driving. What did that mean? Another family? Another case? Another loop? I checked the map Carla gave me, the one with the red X's. I cross-referenced it again and again, this time overlaying it with old accident reports, missing persons cases, archived weather anomalies, anything that might connect. And one name kept resurfacing. A family I'd never heard of. The McMillans. Disappeared in 1993, on a holiday trip from northern Alabama. Black family of 4, just like the Thompsons. No trace, no wreckage. Last seen stopping for directions near Walker Ridge, roughly 70 miles from where the Thompson car first reappeared. I dug up the police reports. They were laughably brief. One witness statement, one vague sighting, one follow-up, that was it. No mention in the press. No statewide alert. It was like the file had been intentionally buried. But one detail chilled me. The description of the vehicle. 1986 Ford Country Squire, beige with faux wood paneling. Same make, same model, same year, but it wasn't the Thompsons. Different license plate. I searched DMV archives. Took some wrangling, but I finally got the original registration. The car had been sold in June of 1986 to William Thompson. Which meant he'd bought two identical cars? Or someone used the same records? Or the cars were never meant to be tracked? I called Carla, told her everything. She was quiet for a long time, then said, "Maybe it's not the people who vanish. Maybe it's the car, and the people just go along for the ride." I drove out to Walker Ridge the next day. It was nearly sunset when I arrived. A small overpass, cracked pavement, dry brush. Not much around but telephone poles and rusted-out fencing. I parked the truck, got out, and immediately felt it, that same pressure in the air. Like something had passed through recently. Or was still nearby. I walked the edge of the ridge. Looked for signs of tire tracks. Old debris, anything. And then I saw it. Pinned to a telephone pole with a bent roofing nail. Another Polaroid. This one different. Not yellowed, not blurred, crisp, recent. It showed a dirt road I didn't recognize, with a single car driving toward the horizon. A 1986 Ford Country Squire. In the front seat, clearly visible through the windshield, was me. And in the passenger seat, Lila, older, calm, and behind us, in the back seat, two small silhouettes. Children, one of them holding a toy car. I took the photo home and stared at it for hours. This wasn't just surveillance anymore. It was staging, a suggestion, or a preview. But of what? Was this what would happen? Or what already had? I put the photo down. And noticed something else in the envelope. A second image. Same road, same car, but this time, the car was parked. Empty, doors open, no one inside, and a single chair placed in front of the car. With a cassette tape on it. Labeled, Final Play. That night, I sat in my truck, in the garage, keys in the ignition. Not starting it, just holding the keys. Wondering what would happen if I did. Would I find that road? Would I become that photo? Would the back seat be empty now? Or would someone already be waiting? At 3:17 a.m., my phone rang. No number, just static on the line. Then, you know where the turn is now. You just have to decide which version of you makes it. Click. Deadline. I sat there until sunrise. Didn't turn the key. Didn't move. But part of me knows, that version of me in the photo? He already did. I didn't sleep the next night. Didn't eat. Didn't call Carla. I sat in my living room surrounded by every piece of evidence I'd collected. The photos, the cassettes, the maps, the notes scribbled in the margins of notebooks I barely remembered writing in. The loop was real, and I was in it. Not metaphorically, not emotionally, geographically. The roads I'd driven, the forests I'd walked through, even the hallways of my house, they weren't linear. They were cycling, repeating, rearranging, a maze that moved around me as long as I kept trying to leave it. Or fix it, or understand it. The final photo made that clear. Me, Lila, two children, driving toward a horizon that no longer existed on any modern map. I pulled the tape labeled Final Play from the envelope. Stared at it. It felt heavier than the others. I loaded it into my last working player, one I kept now in a locked cabinet like a weapon. I pressed play. The tape began with a sound I hadn't heard before on any of the others. Breathing. 5 people. In sync. Calm. Peaceful. Then a voice. Low. Measured. Not male or female. Just, present. It said, this was never a story about what was lost. It was always about what was returned. Then it shifted. A new sound. Not words. Wheels. Rolling. Gravel crunching underneath tires. Then another voice. Mine. Tired. Older. Whispering. I made the turn. I found the road. But I think someone else was already driving. The tape stopped. No click. Just silence. Then a pop. The player ejected the tape, on its own. It slid out slowly, like it didn't want to leave. I left it on the table. I grabbed my keys. And for the first time, I didn't think. I drove. Past the old state lines. Past the dead fields. Past the stretch of pines where the Thompson car had first been found. The road bent around me. I didn't recognize the signs anymore. The green mile markers had no numbers. Only single words. Repeat. Begin. Paused. Then, finally, Willow. No arrow. No symbol. Just that word. I turned. The asphalt thinned. Became gravel. Then dirt. Then moss-covered earth. But the tires knew the way. The car turned on its own. The headlights flickered once. Then stabilized. Up ahead, a clearing. And in it, the car. My car, parked neatly, facing me, and behind it, at the center of the clearing. The wooden door, standing upright, still, waiting. This time, there were no chairs, no photos, no cassettes, only the door, and the car. I stepped out. The wind picked up, leaves lifted and spun in a perfect circle around the trees. I approached the car. Inside, nothing. No tape deck, no glove compartment, just a hollow space. Like it had never been a vehicle, just a shape. A vessel, a placeholder for movement. I walked to the door. There was something carved into the wood now. Not a message. A mirror. Old, cracked, barely reflective. I saw myself, but older. And behind me, 4 figures. Lila, Jerome, Marcus, Vanessa. They didn't move, didn't blink, just stood, waiting. I looked at my reflection again. It blinked, but I didn't. It smiled, but I didn't. Then it turned, walked into the blackness behind the door. Gone. I stepped back, didn't follow, and the door began to close. But before it did, I heard one last voice from inside. A child's voice. Lila, soft. Thank you for not leaving us behind this time. Then silence. Then the wind died. The door vanished. No pop, no snap, just gone. I turned back toward the car. It was gone too. In its place, the clearing. Untouched, clean, as if nothing had ever happened there. Not in 1987. Not in 2005. Not tonight. I drove home in silence. The roads made sense again. My GPS worked. The trees didn't lean the way they used to. The hallway in my house is now exactly 17 feet again. Amanda never answered my messages. Carla's number is disconnected. All of my cassette players are missing. Only one thing remains. A single Polaroid, on my fridge, new, undated. It shows me, sitting on my couch, looking out the window, and in the reflection, the Thompson family. All 5 of them, smiling, finally. But in the corner of the photo, the blurry edge of a figure I can't quite make out. Long, tall, waiting. I don't know if I ever left that clearing. I don't know if the loop ever ended. Maybe I just changed sides. Maybe that's what this story is, not a warning, not a confession, but an invitation. And now that you've read it, maybe you'll start to see the photos too. Maybe you already have. Check your porch in the morning. Just in case.